Lesson 13, I will use standard subtraction algorithm and apply the algorithm to solve word problems using tape diagrams. So we learned in Zern that sometimes whenever we're trying to subtract, we have to unbundle. So we're going to practice a little bit of that unbundling today when we use the standard subtraction algorithm. Okay, so let's take a look at your problem set. Go ahead and write your name at the top, and then let's look at the directions. So the directions say use the standard algorithm to solve the following subtraction problems. So before we subtract in this problem, we need to make sure that we are ready to subtract. And the way that we do that, if you'll remember, is we're going to make sure that the number at the top is larger than the number at the bottom. So are we ready to subtract in the ones? Yes, because 5 is bigger than 2. Are we ready to subtract in the tens? Yes, because 2 is bigger than 0. Are we ready to subtract in the hundreds? Yes, because 5 and 5 are equal. Are we ready to subtract in the thousands? Yes, because 7 is greater than 3. Okay, so now we're ready to subtract. So we're just going to say 5 minus 2 is 3. 2 minus 0 is 2. 5 minus 5 is 0, and 7 minus 3 is 4. So this problem required no unbundling. We could just straight subtract. Okay, so let's take a look at B. Now you'll notice that the digits are very similar in B as they are in A. I want you to go ahead and do B all by yourself, and then I want you to come back and we'll check together. Now, if you checked, you notice that every one of the place values were ready to subtract before we ever began. So it was the exact same problem, and when we got to the 10,000s place, 1 minus 1 is 0. I could have put a 0 here, but a 0 at the beginning of a number has no value, so I just left it out. So we ended up with the exact same answer, or the exact same difference. So let's take a look at C. So we're first of all going to check to see are we ready to subtract. Are we ready to subtract in the ones? Well, no, we're not, because I only have 5 ones and I'm trying to take away 7. So I'm going to come to the tens and I'm going to unbundle. So instead of having 2 tens, I'm going to have 1 10. I'm going to take those 10 tens and put it, or that 1 10, and put it in the ones place, which will be 10 ones, which will end up with 15 ones. Am I ready to subtract in the tens place? Yes. In the hundreds place? Yes. In the thousands place? Yes. So I'm going to pause the video. I want you to go ahead and subtract and find the difference. So after subtracting, I ended up with 2,208. Okay, let's move along and take a look at problem D. So again, we're going to check to see if we're ready to subtract in each place. Are we ready to subtract in the ones? Yes. Are we ready to subtract in the tens? No. So I'm going to unbundle one of these hundreds, and that's going to leave 5 hundreds. I'm going to take that 100 and move it to the tens place. So instead of having 2 tens, I will now have 12. Am I ready to subtract in the hundreds place? Yes. In the thousands place? Yes. So now I'm ready to find the difference. I want you to pause the video and subtract. So as you can see, after subtracting, I ended up with a difference of 4,190. Okay, so let's take a look at E. Are we ready to subtract in the ones? Yes. Are we ready to subtract in the tens? No. So I'm going to come to the hundreds, and I'm going to unbundle one of these hundreds, and that's going to leave 4 hundreds. I'm going to take that 100 and move it to the tens place. So now I have 10 tens. Am I ready to subtract in the hundreds place now? Yes. And in the thousands place now? Yes. I want you to pause the video, and this time I want you to finish E, and I want you to try to do F all by yourself. If you get stuck, press play and I'll walk you through it. Okay, for E, you can see that after I subtracted, I ended up with a difference of 6,030. Let's take a look at F. So in F, I could not subtract in the hundreds place, so I had to come to the thousands and unbundle 1,000 and move it to the hundreds place. Then I could subtract in the hundreds place, and I could subtract in the thousands place. So I ended up with a difference of 2,523. Okay, let's take a look at G. So we're going to try to do G, And we're going to look to see if every place we are ready to subtract. Are we ready to subtract in the ones place? Yes. In the tens place? Yes. In the hundreds place? Yes. What about the thousands? No, we have to come to the 10,000s and unbundle a 10,000 and move it to the thousands place. So now I have 13 thousands. Now I'm ready to subtract. I'd like for you to try to finish G, H, and I all by yourself. Again, if you get stuck, just press play and I'll walk you through it. Okay, so after subtracting in G, you can see that I ended up with a difference of 9,010. So let's take a look at H. So when I went to subtract in H, I was able to subtract in the ones, tens, and hundreds, but when I got to the thousands, I was unable to. So I had to unbundle a 10,000, and I moved that 10,000 to the thousands place so that I had two 10,000s and 11,000s. Then when I subtracted, I had 227,110. Let's look at I. So in I was able to subtract until I got to the 10,000s place. And I couldn't subtract because 2 was larger than 1, so I unbundled 100,000. That left 100,000, and I moved that 100,000 to the 10,000s place, so I had 11 10,000s. And when I subtracted, I had 98,220. All right, so let's take a look at this application problem. It says draw a tape diagram to represent each problem. So actually this is not an application problem, excuse me. Draw a tape diagram to represent each problem. Use numbers to solve and write your answer as a statement. Check your answers. Okay, so we have a few things that we have to do. We have to draw a tape diagram, we have to solve, we have to write our answer as a statement, and we have to check our answers. Okay, so we have 4 things to do. So first of all, let's draw our tape diagram. Okay, so let's draw a tape diagram. Now I'm going to use this tool here because I have a hard time drawing a nice box with my pen. All right, so now it says what number must be added to 13,875 to result in a sum of 25,885. So do we have a total? This will be our total, right? Because they're giving us this number, and I like to write inside the box. I know sometimes you'll see it written below the box. I like to just go ahead and write inside the box. So we have 13,875, and it's asking us what number do we have to add to that, and we can call this, I'm going to go ahead and call it A, and it says what number do we have to add to that to give us a total of 25,884. So how would we solve to find A? Well, we could subtract, right? So now we're going to solve. So let's take 25,884 and we're going to subtract 13,875. I want you to solve this problem by yourself. So I'm going to pause the video and I want you to subtract. Okay, so you can see that I was not ready to subtract in the ones place. So I had to unbundle from the tens, and I took 1 away, and that left 7 tens. I moved that to the ones place, I had 14 ones. I was able to subtract everywhere else. So now I'm going to write my answer as a statement. So I'm going to go back to the question, what number must be added to 13,875 to result in a sum of 25,884? So I'm going to say 12,009 must be added to 13,875 to result in 25,884. Now it says to check our answer. So how do you check a subtraction problem? Well, you take your answer and you add it to the number that you are subtracting to see if you get the total. So we're going to take 13,875 and we're going to add it to 12,009 and see if we get 25,884. So let's try this. So 5 plus 9 makes 14. And then 7 plus 1 makes 8. And then 8 and 0 makes 8. And 3 and 2 make 5. And 1 and 1 make 2. So we got 25,884. So because these match, then they check. So that means that our answer is correct. All right, let's take a look at problem number 3. Now this actually is an application problem, so we're going to use the RDWW process here. We're going to read, we're going to draw, we're going to write a number sentence, and then we're going to write a statement. So artist Michelangelo was born on March 6, 1475. Author Mem Fox was born on March 6, 1946. How many years after Michelangelo was born was Fox born? Okay, so let's think about this for a minute. We have Michelangelo, and he was born in the year 1475. And then we have Mem Fox. I'm going to put an MF because M and M. And she was born in 1946. So we're trying to figure out how many years after Michelangelo was born was Mem Fox born. So we're trying to figure out this here. What's the difference? How much longer is 1946 than 1475? So to find the difference, we're going to subtract. So 1946 minus 1475. Can I subtract in the ones? Yes. Can I subtract in the tens? No. So I'm going to unbundle 100, and I'm going to take that 100 and move it to the tens. So now I have 14. Can I subtract in the hundreds? Yes. Can I subtract in the thousands? Yes. So now I'm ready to subtract. 6 minus 5 is 1. 14 minus 7 is 7. And 8 minus 4 is 4. 1 minus 1 is 0. So Mem Fox was born 471 years after Michelangelo. So that's going to be my answer statement. Fox was born 471 years after Michelangelo. Okay, let's look at problem number 4. During the month of March, 68,025 pounds of king crab were caught. If 15,618 pounds were caught in the first week of March, how many pounds were caught in the rest of the month? Okay, so we read. Now let's think about what we can draw. We have a total here. This was the total number of king crab that was caught in the month of March. So that's going to be my total. So I'm going to draw a tape diagram. I'm going to try to freehand this tape diagram. Not too bad. All right, so this is my total. 68,025, and this is the abbreviation for pounds. All right, now it says if 15,614 pounds were caught in the first week of March, how many pounds were caught in the rest of the month? So we've got the first week of March, and they caught 15,614, and they want to know how much was caught the rest of the month. So I'm just going to call this C because we're talking about crabs. I could call it anything. So if I have this part, and I'm missing a part, but I know the total, how would I find the answer of the missing part? Well, I need to subtract. So I want you to try to finish the rest of this problem, and then come back and let's check together. If you get stuck and you're not sure what to do, you can always press play. Okay, so let's take a look here where I subtracted. So when I went to subtract, I could subtract in the ones, I could subtract in the tens, but I could not subtract in the hundreds. So I had to unbundle 1,000. That left 7 thousands and 10 hundreds. And then I could subtract in the the thousands and the 10,000s. So that left me with a difference of 52,411. So that was my number statement, and then when I wrote my answer statement, it was 52,411 pounds of crab were caught in the rest of the month. All right, so let's take a look at problem number 5. Now, I'd like for you to try to read this problem and see if you can't do the R, D, WW process all by yourself. If you get stuck, you can always press play, and I will walk you through it, but try to do as much of it as you can by yourself. Okay, so let's take a look at problem number 5. So When you read this problem, it talked about how James bought a used car and it talked about an odometer. And you may not have been exactly sure what an odometer was. You may have still been able to figure out this problem because obviously we've been subtracting every time, but just for your own information, this is what the odometer on a car looks like. It's this number on the car that tells you how many miles a car has been driven. And since James bought a used car, his car had already been driven so many miles. In this case, his car had been driven. We were trying to figure out how many miles his car had been driven when he bought it. He drove 9,050 miles. And after he drove that many miles, this is what his odometer said. So we were trying to figure out what it said before he started to drive it. I used O for odometer reading. You could have used anything that you wanted to there. So in order to figure out what his odometer read before he started driving his car, we had to subtract. So when I subtracted, I was unable to subtract in the thousands place, so I had to unbundle in the 10,000s place, which left me with no 10,000s and 18,000s. When I subtracted, I had 109,014. So James' odometer reading was 109,014 miles. So today we talked about using subtraction. The big difference here is to make sure that you are checking to see that you could subtract in every place value before you begin to subtract, and learning that sometimes you have to unbundle so that you have enough in that place value to be able to take away.